What are the 10 solutions then? Let's first look at how people are stacked up right now. We kept talking about disparities, and not only in the contribution to climate change, but also in terms of experiencing climate change impacts and the vulnerability, resilience, etc. So the book divides the current population into top 1 billion that are most economically well off. Their consumption of fossil fuels contributes roughly 50% of the global CO2 pollution. We looked at another version of this already, but it's worth repeating here again. The bottom 3 billion have very limited access to fossil fuels and the energy produced by fossil fuels. This group contributes only 5% of global CO2 pollution. 3 billion people, almost 50% of the population, produces only 5% of global carbon pollution. We refer to these as the bottom 3 billion, not in a pejorative sense, but because they represent the least affluent of the Earth's population and are at the bottom of economic and energy pyramids. On a per person basis, they emit about 1/30th as much as individuals in the top 1 billion. 1/30th. Okay, but they are often most vulnerable to the impacts of climate change. This is something that has to be remembered when we bend the curve about intergenerational and intragenerational equities and how the future benefits accrue to all the people. The middle 3.5 billion are neither the poorest nor the richest. Their situation is intermediate between the top 1 billion sorry, and the bottom 3 billion. Their per person emissions are about 10 times higher than the bottom 3 billion, but only about 1/3 of the top 1 billion. Everybody wants to move up the ladder in economic stature. Obviously, everybody wants a better livelihood, better living. Each generation wants the next generation to do better. So the middle class, that's, let's say, this 3.5 billion in the middle, especially in countries like India, China, Brazil when it was doing well, and so on, were actually upwardly mobile. And the bad news there is, of course, their per capita emission continues to grow as they move up economically. This is something that has to be kept in mind. I mentioned that in the context of population, we cannot just blame population growth because it depends on consumption. If population decrease comes with increased consumption per capita emission, then we are not accomplishing much. And here is a good example of the slums in Mumbai, always claimed to be the largest continuous slum in the world, I think, or in Asia maybe. The rich and poor communities living side by side in Mumbai. Okay, considering the hot, humid weather here and the buckets of rain that fall during 4 months, obviously there are massive issues, and some of it played out during the COVID-19 situation. There was a worry that the slums will become tremendous hotspots for COVID, but surprisingly there was a increase in infections in the beginning, but pretty soon they became so aware and managed it so well. Remember these small shanties here. People have no chance of social distancing and so on, okay? So they are all huddled together. And funny enough, after a couple of months of COVID explosion, rich neighborhoods in Mumbai were much worse off than these slums. Okay? You have to think about that. Okay. So, in that context, then, the 10 solutions outlined by the book fall under these 6 clusters that we talked about. Science, 1, 2, 3, 4, where are the 6? Okay, here. Science pathways is in the inside. There is a ranking, by the way, which I didn't mention clearly before. Societal transformation have solutions 2 and 3. governance solutions accommodate mitigation pathway 4, markets and regulations have 5 and 6, technology has 9, 8 and 7, 7, 8 and 9, and ecosystem management has 10. And the book talks about 3 levers: carbon lever, short-lived climate pollutant lever that we already talked about, and atmospheric carbon extraction lever. Okay, so why is science pathway given the top ranking? There is some justification given that we will go through throughout the rest of the book. So this chapter and the next chapter give a brief run through in the way these are arranged, and then we'll see what the logic is behind the ranking of these pathways. Like, why does technology measure fall so behind the societal transformation, governance, market-based, and regulation-based solutions? Or right? So those clusters. These are the top 10 solutions. Maybe I should do it as a separate podcast, which I will do. So remember, we will talk about 10 solutions now. We talked about 6 clusters ranked, and we talked about intragenerational and intergenerational equities and the way the emissions are split right now, and we have to worry about how that will change into the future and how the solutions actually take care of these intergenerational and intragenerational equities, as well as the vulnerabilities of the bottom 3 billion. There is social science theories which tell you that instability occurs when you have very steep gradients in wealth. If you have very rich people living next to very poor people, as in Mumbai, then there can be tipping points in the system where conflicts arise that can lead to destabilization in many ways. Okay?